brand new series time, and not just a brand new series of Shonen, not just some other magic themed series. As you know, I've said before, I have a very strong attraction to any series that's more magic based. But this series, Guardian of the Witch, is actually done by a former assistant of Tabata himself. Tabata being creator of Black Clover. So if you are a Black Clover fan, I'm sure you will like this series and at least give it an attempt, because we all know that Tabata is supporting, the guy that used to work for him to hopefully be successful. And from the premise of the first chapter, I do like it. I do think it's very interesting. So the chapter starts out, you have this thing, they're just called evils. They're, a pretty straightforward kind of like thing. I feel like they're more intimidating in the Japanese name for them. But these like big horrific mutated monster creatures are all rushing toward big walled-in city, and they're like, okay, we need to get everyone prepped and ready. We're gonna have to, fight. And this character that he's Captain Fafnir, he's getting ready to like get their combat positions going. He's like, hold your positions. But up in the tower above them, you have this witch who just lays waste to all of these creatures all at once. Just has this giant like wave of fire absolutely engulfed like the entire monster horde and reduced them to ash. And it's like explaining in this series that how all these different cities are all protected by witches. They have like military and like combat forces, but really they don't actually end up really doing anything, and they're kind of just there. It's kind of just like I imagine it'd be like more of keeping the peace, kind of like police officers, where it's like, oh yeah, some commotion's going on, maybe there's some fight at a bar or something there, some guys getting to step in, because it doesn't look like they actually do any of the protecting. And you have this main character Fafnir, who is like he's the knight of this of this area. He's the guardian of the witch, as the name of the series, of this girl it's hard, gonna try my best to pronounce her. Manasva? Actually, that sounds pretty good. Sounds much better than like Manasva. I'm gonna go Manasva like Mon. That's just my best guess of where it goes. But she seems to be this kind of like hard to deal with girl. She's like very she just seems like very demanding. She just wants like to eat all this food. She just wants this guy to go out and do any of her things for her, make sure she gets paid every single month on the dime. Something that I don't imagine is his primary job, is he's like supposed to protect her, but it's coming more of like he's her errand boy. But you get this explanation of why he's like this, and whenever you go into a series, you gotta find out what makes the main character the main character. Is it gonna be their powers, or how skilled are they? As the start of this series, it doesn't look like people generally have any form of abilities. Anybody who has like powers are these witches, these women who have magic abilities. And nothing right now. I mean, there's always the possibility he could do something later, because they explain how later the way it works is you have these the women who get infected by this virus that makes the evils, and because of that they can kind of channel out some of their power, and they end up becoming able to magic. I mean, it's fully possible that maybe eventually he'll get infected and he'll be like an exception to that, and maybe just way more common in women, and there are rare cases of males. I'm guessing from the color spread at the start of the chapter that one of the things that it's going to be like going on for him is she's going to end up using magic to enchant his sword. So maybe we'll get like him with all these different elemental blades, which will be really cool, like just different powered swords in general. Because you already see like in this chapter that he's a very skilled swordsman, and like when he ends up joining like the guardians of this, like of their city, this essentially a military force. I think the easiest way to describe it that I see some people going with is kind of magic based Attack on Titan in a little bit, but kind of joining up their military crew. And you have Fafnir, who's like he wants his dream to make it so the guardians are strong enough to protect the city state out any witches, and they don't want to have to rely on witches. And then when you have like all these guys laughing at him, they're like, listen, you don't understand. Like, one, you're ignorant, because everything really is done by witches at this point. They're so much more powerful, and the guardians don't need to do anything. And two, the only people that have this dream are like guys who have never gone up against an evil and actually like don't really have the experience to really like contend with their strength. And the next part you see is like a fight between this guy and Fafnir just completely just decimates him. Blitz cuts like this little pointed piece of his hair down and defeats him in one move. And it's very believable when you find out the reasons for it. And he's like explaining how he was essentially like his parents and his sister were all eaten by an evil that had gotten into the city out of nowhere, just popped up and, pretty turned him into an orphan. As is tradition with a lot of main characters, they're an orphan. But he's saying like how no one was able to get there on time. There was no witch to help him. None of the guardians were there to really do anything. They were ineffectual. And then, like, he explains the reason is because they became so reliant on the witch that the people became so much weaker. So he ended up training and becoming strong in order to not have to rely on the magic abilities of the witch, which it would like makes 100% perfect sense of why you have him completely just run through this guy that he fought. Where okay, yeah, the guy's big, but clearly he doesn't train. He doesn't do anything to make himself better. And the main character of Fafnir, he's like, yeah, he's been obviously working hard, and for him, running through this dude was just super, super easy because he actually puts in a lot of effort and became a powerful character. I have a very, very strong happiness over the fact that we got a map of the city in the first chapter. There's something about series when they show maps that I always just really enjoy. I really enjoy just having like a little bit of a layout understanding of what's going on. They're showing essentially, it's a walled city. It's got 4 different sections cut off. You have like one where the nobles are. You have 3 different ones where the urban people are and whatnot. You have one watchtowers and everything, and then 2 different like long corridors that go into other city states. And this first one, Bern, is where the main character from, and you end up seeing like the witch, and she's a little upset. She had to go to like a physical exam, and she's just talking about how she pounds. I mean, it's understandable. She just eats a lot. She doesn't seem to really do any physical exercise. But her character, she seemed a little bit kind of rude earlier in the chapter. But to me, I thought it was more of like mocking. She's just teasing Fafnir, which I can understand. She doesn't seem bad. I just imagine like when this is the only person she ever really interacts with, she's gonna wanna, have fun with them. I mean, she's got like this other character, this like assistant, but other than that, this girl, what's her name, Nata, like other than that, like she doesn't really have, I imagine, a lot of interactions with a lot of other people. And like she's like saying that she got permission to go outside of the watchtower the next day, and she was very excited to go out and do stuff. And even like when she's asking like Fafnir what exactly that like he wants to do when they go out together, and I think that was just that's a good sign. Is it wasn't like she was gonna like make fun of her or anything at that point. It's like when she's actually like genuinely happy. She's like, oh yeah, what are we gonna do tomorrow? And it's just like you can tell she's happy to go out and do this in general, but she's also happy that she's gonna go out and do stuff with with this person she clearly enjoys and clearly likes the company of. Even if she likes to mess with him, it's very clear that she doesn't actually dislike him. It's more like I said, it's just teasing, just trying to have fun with him. Probably likes him a little bit more than that. Then you have this guy, the rector of Bern, and he's saying how that Fafnir has a final mission he's got to do. Got to kill the witch. And that's when they explain how the reason that they do these physical exams is they have to monitor the infection on her body. And he's got like this it's very interesting because he's got like this ring, and it looks like the rings are in this series are gonna have powers. I'm guessing like outside of witches, you're gonna have like enchanted items. I haven't done a lot of research in it, but obviously I know that Fafnir is named after I believe a Nordic dragon character, and then I think that a ring was part of what ended up defeating him. So I'm guessing like rings being important to his story, that he's gonna have rings important to the series. And maybe you can get something later on like Fafnir will have different rings with different elemental enchantments or just different magic enchantments. Like maybe he's got he's got a fire sword ring that he activates it or catches on fire. Maybe he's got one that his sword will I don't know, maybe his sword will back to him. Maybe his sword will grow in size. Maybe his sword will be able to make him move faster or react faster or something. Anything just like an idea of like a general buff. I think that's a really neat idea, and it becoming more of like a way that he kind of like combos all these trinkets together with the sword. And then you can have something like, oh well, he doesn't just like maybe you can buy them, maybe you can obtain these like normal way, but also maybe Manasva could enchant them and create them, which would give her an extra level of like use in the series, other than having like high level of firepower character and who is part of the main cast. Meanwhile, you have Fafnir, who's a little bit astonished by he's got to kill this girl, and the kind of like bishop guy is like explaining how every once in a while they get 3,000 girls once they turn 12, and then they infect all of them. 9 out of 10 of them just kind of like go insane there and die, and then out of that like surviving 1 out of 10 amount, a lot of them like their bodies physically reject the infection and they die anyway. And Manasva is one of the few that end up being able to withstand it all, which is a very messed up system, like for real. It's weird to think about, because it's like they need the witches to even hold these cities in general, and every once in a while you have thousands of these young girls die, and at the same time it's like if they don't, they're gonna have all these cities die. It's a very like nobody wins scenario, kind of like you either have to do this or do this another way, that either way there's going to be a lot of death. I wish that it was like maybe they did like more of what Fafnir's up to, and having all these very like powerful swordsmen trained, and then magic and enchanted weapons, and be combining them instead of just killing all of these girls who have no choice in the matter. Very, very bleak start to the series, very dark like beginning. But there was part of the explanation of Fafnir, like there was a previous one who they didn't end up killing the witch in time. She turned it into one of the evils, and because of that, she ended up being the one that killed and consumed Fafnir's family, which you can see it becoming a little bit more personal at that point. Like it goes over, and Asfa and Nata, they're just like hanging out there in this park, and she's a little mad that Fafnir isn't there, but he's actually hiding. He's got his sword out, he's getting ready, and you can tell there's some hesitation in there. There's some worry, because he knows like the severity of it, but he doesn't want to kill her, and he doesn't think he deserves it. And she like reveals when talking to him is because when he first introduced himself, he talked about how he hated witches and he wants to make it so they don't need to depend on witches anymore. But she ends up hating witches too, because I think she understands essentially where they're kind of at. This kind of like where she has this collar that she wears, that it's essentially like it's just like a big shackle on her powers, and she only gets it taken off when she has to do something. And I'm guessing it will confine her power, and that like maybe the infection, it won't spread unless she uses her magic. And then like as long as she keeps it on, she's not gonna end up like continuing the spreading of said infection. I'm very curious to know like eventually like if they're gonna find a way to kind of like draw it back, because if it has like a set time, then eventually it will just spread and overtake her, and then versus like, oh, if they find a way not to cure it but kind of to reduce it a little bit, and then like anytime she uses magic, maybe it will come back and get more aggressive. You just need a way to kind of combat that infectious spread a little bit. Otherwise it'd be like eventually there's no pulling back from it. But maybe that's what the author's planning. Maybe there'll be something beyond that, like kind of but they ours where they're then you have like these very like mass spooky like dudes. Like you got one like a moon mask, one chin, pointy nose, one with Tengu nose, and they all just kind of come out with blades ready to attack her. And when it came to like Fafnir saving her, there was definitely again like a sign that he did care about her, because when she like asked what they were gonna do together, he was like, I don't know, we'll go to get crepes, I guess, and I'm sure we'll have fun. Like it was one of those moments, because he was like, oh, I gotta step up and be an adult and tell her essentially what, and he ended up indulging into her little dream of what she was going to get to do, or her hopes that the next day they were going to have fun out like in public and go out and do normal people things. So she just wants to be a normal girl. She doesn't want to have this like essentially a shackled weapon that the kingdom uses, and that's really like all these witches are, because you know, as it is, like she knows that the only time she gets to do anything and her only purpose is being a weapon that they keep like shackled up at any point when not in use. But here comes Fafnir. He goes in and blocks these guys attacking with his sheath and his sword, which I do really like his sword design. It's very like, it's simplistic, but it's very neat looking. Like I really like the cross guard. I think the blade is really cool. And gauging again by the color spread, he's gonna get like elemental enchantments. Fire probably being the most basic one, you know, and obviously like in Fafnir after a dragon, and we saw Manasva's like first spell was a fire spell, and that's what she's using in a lot of the in the color spreads as well, like not just that one, but like previous one series like the. But I mean, fire is like the most like straightforward dragon element. But then you end up seeing like what his like capabilities are on top of what we already saw, like him just later. But this is like him stronger. He has an actual sword instead of just some wooden sparring sword. And he ends up like talking about how even though he thinks that she's like kind of like a bit of a gluttonous tyrant like girl, and he's, you know, he was mad that he got stuck with it like bossy like little kid. Oh, DCs are kind of like a kid. I think he's one of those guys who's like way more mature for his age just because of the scenario that he was put in, the severity of what like kind of like situation he's at. But now he's gonna come with her. He's gonna take her outside, and they're gonna leave the city, and they're gonna go kill witches. They're gonna go and take out the idea of them in general. So when he says he's gonna kill witches, he says he's gonna kill the concept of them. He wants to go and make the world strong enough so that they don't need to rely on them. Not just to be like, we don't need these witches, but he also wants to prevent any of this from happening to any of these other girls. But he also wants to protect Manasva and to return her to that of a normal human, which again is very nice. I really like this idea of not only is this main character's goal to protect her, but he wants to make the world itself stronger so they don't need to go through this, you know, very dark process in order to have witches to protect them. He busts out this like cool dual stance. He's got one sword in his left hand, and he's got his, oh, I just noticed, is he left hand? That's actually really surprising. But he's got his left hand sword, he's got his right hand with his sheath, and he does this really sick just dual bladed style and takes these guys out and defeats them, which is a really nice like start. Like I said, him not having any powers at the beginning is very surprising. And I know that like, you know, you gotta have, oh well, you got like Deku and Asta didn't have powers. I mean, yeah, but they got powers in the first chapter, and it was about how they got their their powers, whereas this guy doesn't have one. But I like the idea though of one of the things I like about Zipman is if Fafnir and Manasva have he's able to use powers outside of his just swordsmanship, like again elemental swords, because of their combination, because of their unity, which again is really interesting in concept. On top of it just being, you know, you got a cool sword guy and you got a cool magic person. It's their unity and their synergy that I think will be a really like neat way to kind of combine them and to really show them as, you know, the lead pair of the series, and not just being, oh, this is the main character, this is the, you know, the lead female. What else is there? It'd be like, oh, well, they kind of count on each other, like very, not just in, oh, well, she's got like powerful magic and he's like a very skilled swordsman, but the way that she ends up, you know, supporting him, like I said, with the idea of enchanted weaponry would be really cool in just that, like I said, the synergy side of things. But other than that, check out the series. It's very interesting off of the first like chapter. I really could. Oh, I just noticed actually looking at the, you know, Nada is going to go with them, which I wonder what her role in is going to be. I feel like she's going to be one of those like maid characters who, even though she's like, oh yeah, I'm this like assistant maid like person, but she's actually combat skilled for the sake of, you know, I was trained specifically for, you know, revealed to be like a backup in case the Guardian wasn't able to get the job, but you know, maybe she likes Manasva and wants to protect her as well. They seem to be pretty close. Other than that, comment below. Tell me your thoughts about the series. Tell me your thoughts about, going into this, and if you've read it, if you liked it or not. But other than that, I appreciate the thumbs up video. And the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But I appreciate it. Subscribe, and I thank you all for listening. Bye.